In my view, this is probably one of the more important workshops because education and health impacts us all, and our families impacts us directly and has really impact whether we're going to succeed as a nation. We know a lot of the stats. Human development indicators are extremely low, not even by international standards. Also when compared to many other African countries. The budget allocation to both health and education is not what it's supposed to be, and quite a bit of work needs to be done. And so we're going to spend time today going through these issues, looking for potential solutions. And we'll try and use the time efficiently since a lot of time has already passed. And I think to kick us off, I think it would be good to do quick introductions just so we have an idea who is in the room before we break it up into different work streams. Leading the discussion will be two individuals, Dr. Olumide Okunola and Ms. Omozino Eguh will be leading the discussions. And what I'll do quickly is if I can start here, just 10-second quick introductions, name, where you work, just quick background, and then I'll also do it within the room as well. So we'll do ladies first.
Hello, everyone. Ladies and gentlemen, nice to be here. My name is Omozino Eguh. I'm a human capital professional. I've been that for the last 10 years. I work at Yudimy, and what we do at Yudimy is that we create algorithms and tools that enable talent profiling for companies, professionals, and communities. So, yeah.
Olumide Okunola, World Bank.
Perfect, thanks.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ronke Kosoko, CEO of Employment Clinic. I work extensively in the maritime and shipping sector, and we just opened the Maritime Innovation Hub in Apapa, where we are upskilling 5,000 young people for the maritime and shipping ecosystem.
Perfect.
Also, a part of Human Capital Development, a policy commission of the NESG. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'm sure, by the way, everyone here is very experienced, has done quite a bit, but given there are many people in the room, if we can keep it very punchy. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dr. Olayemi Daudu. I'm a pathologist and the CEO of Clean Lancet Laboratories, a multinational pathology laboratory in Nigeria. Thank you. And I belong to the Health as a Business group of the NSG.
Hi, everyone. I'm Joy Ozoho, and I work for Options Consultancy Services as a senior consultant, health systems and financing.
Hello, everyone. My name is Uloma Jacob. I'm a health IT consultant for over 10 years, and I am the CEO Tech Care for All Anglophone West Africa.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Emmanuel Acha. I'm the Executive Director, Entrepreneurship Initiative for African Youth based in Eguh, Nigeria.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dele Alimi. I'm the Director General CEO of the Institute of Directors, Nigeria. Thank you.
My name is Chinom Sonka, Ministry of Budget and National Planning.
My name is Olushola Michele. I'm from the Ministry of Budget and National Planning.
Engineer Kamelu Zumo. I'm Commissioner for Trade and Investment.
My name is Zino Johnson. I work with Nigerian Economic Summit Group in the think tank department.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Julie Ozo. I work with Federal Ministry of Education.
Good afternoon. I'm Jonathan Yisa, Resource Development.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Maurice Atoki. I'm the CEO of African Business Coalition for Health, acronym as APC Health. We are a coalition of private sector businesses galvanized to advance healthcare across Africa.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Esther Degole. I work with DAI. We manage projects across economic growth, health, education, and others.
Good afternoon. I'm Tola Adeyemi, Senior Partner at KPMG.
Good afternoon, all. My name is Sam Onazi, Deputy Executive Secretary, National Universities Commission.
Good afternoon. My name is Philip Hermannsdorfer, working as a project manager for Julius Berger.
Good afternoon, everyone.
My name is Nasir Usman. I'm a youth corper serving in SEC, Security and Exchange Commission.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Ibrahim Banari, a family physician, technical anchor with the Health Policy Commission of the NESG.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Martin Zaroge, partner at KPMG, and also technical anchor for this session.
Great, perfect. And so we have a very good mix of private sector and the public sector here. And definitely glad we have very respected members on the public sector from both the states and federal level here to join the discussions. Now, I think key for us in terms of what we're looking to solve for is we need to see how do we come up with recommendations that can bring more private capital into the sector to resolve health and educational related issues. At the same time, we need to figure out how do we broaden access for a broad range of people that cannot potentially tap into private sector services, whether with health or education. I'm going to hand over to the discussion leads. We'll probably have health on this side and then education on that side of the room. So we're going to split into two and have two groups discussing either health or education related. And then after that, we'll come together to now share ideas across work streams before we then conclude. And we'll try and work to wrap up within the next 45 minutes to 1 hour. So if we could please split the room. So if you're interested in health, if you could be in this section of the room, and if you're in education on that section of the room, please. Thank you.
That important. And I think it's also important that there's also the need for political will, which you can't deviate from this sort of conversations. Because I know that in my little experience with government, whatever government wants to make priority, they can make it priority. And and putting that in one bucket. I did a research I was in the UAE for a period last year, 2020 and 2021. And we went around a lot of healthcare facilities. And one of the things that we realized is that the amount of income and what they call minimum wage in Nigeria, what is called minimum wage in Nigeria doesn't even afford people the ability to even pay for healthcare. So what the study we saw was like the average based off the minimum wage that Nigerians have access to, about 300 naira to 500 naira is what is disposable for healthcare. And then you shift it into a country like the UAE, who we transformed in 10 years. And what's the minimum earners of middle class people, maybe $2,400 to $3,700. Then you can now have enough disposable income within $250 to $550 to spend on healthcare. And that changes the dynamic. Now, I said that to say that government alone cannot fund healthcare. And everywhere in the world and every serious economy seeks to work with the private sector in the world. I come from the digital healthcare space, and I've seen a lot of transformation in the sector from when we started in 2015 till date. And that's it. Okay, just sorry, sir. Yeah. I thought you wanted to have something. Okay.
The bedrock of effective primary healthcare and the custodians of the system who are really local government talking about helping them to get strategy to galvanize and make this space vibrant. More importantly, what I see is that they are usually accountable most of the time for what is allocated to them. And when I say accountable, health just happens to be part of what they're supposed to do. So if you don't bring them to the table and kind of advocate and get them to buy in or trying to achieve your health, you essentially say that 90%.
Yes.
I think so. There's other sectors especially the government trying to buy us a little bit more. So we know that you already don't have enough resources to take care of. So the next thing you have to create other things, including other things that decentralized power. So they give states, local governments, some sort of authority in the kind of coverage that they want to get to their constituents. Another one is once you decentralize it, opening up the economy, opening up and bringing in private sector economy, because you don't have enough money to give the kind of quality that we need for increasing migration. And the third is mandating health insurance. We have seen the role that that plays in countries like Rwanda, Ghana, who have been able to increase the number of people that are covered with health insurance over 50%.
This country outside, the schools are not run by government.
You bring in more children, and that brings in investment. Now people who are investing you on the infrastructure. So the government, they can help in practice people defense for that can help. Someone was telling me like there's no MRI machine that's working there. How does the state that have almost 4 and there's no MRI machine that's working. But imagine we go to the private sector and the government are the shorty for the people to bring those
that support that
more people are able to with mandatory health insurance coverage.
Take over that manage.
Thank you. That's quite very well. That's very well.
I'm going to take about
I think that's
and there's a role that we mentioned this. For me, I think that we need to move the conversation beyond Nigeria, unlike a lot of other advanced economies, over decades, government has failed. It's almost, we say we did it, we cannot achieve. And so when I come to like China, we really consider the multi-stage approach in understanding the fundamentals of health and also advancements.
Can I just show one more sentence? Just one sentence.
It's understand other sectors.
You need to set up as model.
And it's almost like to play in other sectors than health. Coincidentally, health is life.
And anybody's money requires element of
familiar with the journey
on that intent
and the economic sector
original be lost.
There's a very high tendency that they are rather
present want to move
converse
being paid
or join with the
services
if they are not
clearly cannot run the system.
And I think
so there has to be a balance. What we absolutely desire now we prepare push and support.
So I do think, and to the health experts in this room, that we need to take deliberate steps and make deliberate efforts.
Okay, so right on top of my head, I'm
get over non-health players into
content
in the affairs of health.
Okay, just one second, Philip, so that we then move to the next, because people are already wanting to that. Any comments on what you had thus far?
The question would be
obvious
trust issue. People should be afforded in the country to get treatment, that they have to do it, not to prefer to abroad. And also talk about income. Because a lot of experts getting into India, and because of jobs abroad, so this is moving the whole healthcare system down. Because even if you would have investment, what is which form would be
anybody who wants to be passionate.
Ethics rates. Of course, you don't want any machines here because every payment will be passed out.
Imagine
but also you don't get to talk So you don't get one in your fundamental.
That's specialized.
So
I
I think there is one thing that's also important in the fundamentals that we are about to discuss. And the question is, what exactly is government strategic objectives? And that's when it comes to healthcare. What does the government want? What we as Nigerians don't want to achieve? Those of us sitting down here can afford to private clinic, do MRI in one big clinic and everything. These are little things that are not available. So the rural poor, look, if you can afford it, you could be on the queue or whatever, but there are people who will go back home to die. I'm sorry, using not because they cannot afford. Exactly.
You know, that's my question. That's the question. That I just want to a creation of that staff. And that piece of what I've said so far. The interesting thing is that there will be different types of funding now. Those institutions that number one, specifically businesses and corporations who are getting into funding those type of things based on their corporate social responsibility. More than that, and then we consider in as far as we can get about on the income level of Nigeria. Not the way it's that any money to very large corporate number of institutions, those that project will be written off. You can only mandate to spend money. So the second aspect will be, those institutions, somebody coming to say, no, I'm not interested. So they move up to facility. I think I want to get so much can see that the return on so at the end of the day, it has to be on board. Coming back to the unity school factor, the unity school factor is have most larger access to resources would have to subsidize those who they must elevate that we have in the middle like NYS program. So those were the so government conveys the new government that coming to power. That is model that works that help priority where we are institute some sort of institution, such state government that is we're dealing with models leading to government help
okay, so one way
so it was 11 state government if you are president, I want the top priority and then things that and then if you want to open that embedded say, hey, wait, the government has funds, if you need to percentage, individuals who are and interested and all that they putting their money all the way to the estate. Yeah,
that seems so passionate. From how I look at it, the impact is minimum. I think a lot of money is being poured into community schools, and the impact of education across the country is insignificant. So I don't agree with you. Yeah, so I don't agree that government necessarily needs to continue with unity. So you don't actually disagree. Because I'm saying the something in the country are so it's insignificant.
But I think we need some that in terms of it's going to fall range. It's going to be defining institution. And that is about, but government as a necessity, must what are you doing? That's what I'm saying. That's educational. Must continue to invest 7-star money. How not this private sector, 7-star investment. And the government have resources for that.
But why not all? But government must be investing in public schools.
So that's what I'm saying. So what I'm saying, what I want to do, the point I'm making here is state government, state government, don't state government are responsible for funding new systems. Federal, only the federal government fund understand that for clarification, only federal government are responsible for funding community schools. And the states government have the equivalent of what's a good way to start. I say something.
I think that's what we want to do. So I think that's okay.
There are questions, there are answers, and those answers have become the low-hanging fruits that want to make this kind of course. We have agencies of government that are handling various aspects in the health sector. We have the National Primary Health Sector and Healthcare Development Agency. That you'll be shocked at the volume of data that organization has. I used to work in the rural area, and we had a primary health center, and there was a need assessment that was done. And the need assessment told me that in the real sense of it, the people are do not need any fantastic equipment or whatever. We found out that what they needed was basic. Because it was a rural area, they found out that the ailment they were treating was malaria, fever, high blood pressure because of the old ones. So if that healthcare center can get those basic drugs, you are meant to need of about 2,000, 3,000. And you can imagine what effect that will have in pockets of health centers in the local government or in the state. And now it goes, just like she said, bottom-up approach. And now it goes out from there.
If the state goes see what you have done, I see you reading my notes. I will tell you.
Yes, I think what she said was very
100%.
Because we need to really know where we are to know where we're going. So, to Olumide's point, so we now have the resources. What do we spend on? Okay, and how do we actually spend? Again, I take you back to the context. Nigeria has prioritized primary healthcare as the cornerstone towards achieving universal. This has been there for the past 10 years in all the policies, in all the strategic plans. But the point here is that if you look at the spending that we have on health, primary healthcare is also not prioritized. So if you check what we have done is there's actually and 80% for the spending on primary health care. It's not done at the primary health care, it's done at those levels. Again, over 95% of all expenditure on payment of salaries and some other issues. Olumide will very much collaborative. Each time you have a discussion with the Ministry of Finance, you have a discussion with the DG budget and president, tell you that health is inefficient. Why? Because capital expenditure on health is less than 5% for the past 20 years. So what are we supposed to be spending even when we have the money? He had mentioned the institutions. Institutions are important, but I think it is important for us to be able to find the elements that really will take our money. And finally, before I hand over to the next person now, direct the the individuals that need it, or to spend them on the institutions. I think that for me will be a reflection I'm going to leave around the table before I yield the floor.
So to just help us understand, so we go to the money.
I think Ibrahim to what said, primary healthcare is not sexy. They do not see it as a priority, and that is why they don't spend on it. They would rather spend on elephant function. Because there's nothing that WHO, all the multinationals have done a lot of economic models to justify the demand for primary healthcare centers. And yet it is still not done. We're still below. They went and agreed to spend 15% on healthcare, and we're still struggling at 80% of our budget to healthcare, 3-4%, right? So it's even nowhere near the Abuja declaration. So where there is no will from the government to implement primary health care, when there's been a justification that this will help advance universal health care, then we're just talking in circles.
You wanted to add something?
We have 20 minutes left. So just pay attention to the questions to make sure we have answers from the questions in the discussion format.
The role of primary health care, the whole value chain of health.
That's right. That's right.
All of us suggesting that the health and I think health professionals underestimate the lack of knowledge of health. Not every other player that are beneficiaries of health, especially.
Okay, very good. So just to close or round up this second segment before we go to the last segment, and then we go have time, is you started on something very critical. Say, look, so you have the number of poor increasing. We discussed earlier, we don't have enough money. So if we have some data that says, look, this is the total number of poor, which is about 90 to 100 million today, you are then able to better match the little you have to those people who need it the most. That's the fundamental thing to do, and that's the fundamental thing you address. Once you have that number, you also mentioned, look, people don't want highfalutin things. They want a basic minimum package of health services. All right. If you are able to better define what that is costing, then I'm able to multiply by the total number that I can take care of. If you're able to take care of 50 million and X naira, then I have ICT that you mentioned that's able to help channel all of that. You then, your question then becomes, I have the money, I know the numbers, I know how much it's going to cost me. What's the most efficient way for me to now transfer these funds? And I don't want us to dwell on national health insurance because that's what we will use, which is different from the Ministry of Health, that you just send money, no number, no amount, and all of that. Because what we have not been able to discuss, the point where we are now is, we know the money, we've aggregated it, who will deliver it? And this is where the private sector, because the policy decision is buy from whoever is able to deliver at the level of quality that you require. Yes, sir. So we're at that third bucket now, you know, the role of the private sector. We've accumulated money, we know who is going to buy. How does the private sector now help play? Yes, sir. That's fine, that's fine.
But how about, you know, the bulk of Americans, what is happening in the healthcare sector? It's actually out of pocket expense.
Yes.
And I think that is really where the emphasis should be to drive down the cost of.
That's where we started from, actually.
So, and then I'm also opinion, our sister there mentioned something about knowledge gap. Knowledge gap of
healthcare workers who they need to be infused into the system. When we look at the current landscape, well, because of nurses and other medical staff that are made to engage from government at the attainment of the age of 60 or whatever, and they are now pushing in rural areas, selling academies and all this stuff. Can't they be harvested back?
Okay, all right.
Will be readily available in rural areas, but accessibility in rural areas and for timely intervention. That's just
so, and I take your point, and I'll note it because it's very important. Just to mention that this last 10 minutes, we followed a path, we have money, we know what we're spending money on. So the private sector can't even say that. You now have that mass to build on. So, and you've given an example on PBP, managed business scheme. Those can only work when we are presenting. So, assumption. It's an assumption. I'm building on an assumption. Or to come up with solutions, we identify sequentially foundational reforms that needs to happen. We summarize the second bucket in terms of what those quote unquote reforms at the sectoral level. Now we've gotten that, we assume that those two buckets of reforms have worked. That's the only way that the private sector now cannot begin to deliver. Yes, madam. Now, fantastic.
And I can understand where private sector will always be the always seem to do that. And you know, they don't want to let them government contracts together. However, to explain people who have to identify those somewhat and which is that apart from training, all price them the right partnership of the and the right operational government to do their own every particular. We not only training with a compact, you're able to find
Okay, let's just double down on human resources for health so that we can then quickly move to other segments. Pathologists. So, almost all specialists are all right. Any quick idea in terms of how the private sector can help in terms of HRH now? Just so please just think about comments and opportunities and reforms around HRH. We are the only pathologists left. Yes. She's an issue pathologist, and there are less than 20 left. She doesn't want to mention anymore, but go on, please.
I think obviously we have been working by what it is, I can't.
I'll give you a quick idea. So Lagos State government producing medical stock, they don't employ any of them. They have 100 seats in last field infrastructure. None of them is employed. But what do? You can pay their seats for 6 years. So that you are the one that has many of them. They can go to India if they want to, but the commitment. Right now, people are paying out of pocket. By the way, unless they do that, so Philippines buys up all the seats. If you go to the UK, make forex, you come back. Any ideas on HRH? Any ideas on HRH? Otherwise, we move to hospitals and facilities.
I think even the income. So in the US, for instance, they'll tell you that the richest people are doctors or lawyers. I think putting a regulation around what the salary earning of doctors is also another way to think about incentivization, because what man is really looking for is money. They need to pay bills, people need to pay.
So we addressed it in our second assumption. When you pull, especially the poor, paid for, and you pull to doctors, we saw like a new question.
But again, it also goes back to the earlier thing we talked about, and I don't want us to lose track of this. She mentioned something, holding people accountable, number one. Sure. And then number two, also the political will to prioritize some of it. Because if you look at healthcare, everybody knows the issues. Everything is fragmented. But day in, day out, there are no actors who are taking intentional steps to remedy the situation. And I bet you will come here again next year and we'll still have this same conversation with the same people.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Well, outsource services.
Outsourcing service. So we just put out another any
outsourcing of services.
So but health facilities.
The other one I want to say is that there was a time we were to some extent getting it right in Nigeria as far as health was concerned. What were we doing then? We go back and check those. We have this number. Yeah, it's about upscaling those services. There was a time we were getting it right. Not entirely right, but we were getting some things right. Can we go back there? Can we check what we were doing right? Just like somebody said at the plenary, can we check what we were doing right and see what we can do to get them better, get IT involved, you get what I mean? Make it better, make it smarter, then get from this.
Like I said, our public, they need to first admit that they don't have the efficiency, public sector. We don't have the efficiency. We don't have enough money to run this thing. So we need to bring in private sector investment.
The public sector man,
in terms of operation, give out, let's hospital, they cannot manage the number of tertiary and primary health care sector.
The man in the Federal Ministry of Health, just a minute, the man in the Federal Ministry of Health will tell you.
Hello. Sorry, just to pause everyone. I've just been informed that the timetable has changed again. And so we have to wrap this up in the next 1 minute. So we can now start sharing ideas and get to the meat between the sections. So please 1 minute to wrap up and then discussion leads will share findings.
The man in the Federal Ministry of Health tells you that the private sector is only concerned about profits. Okay. And government is standing in gap for the poor people to ensure that it is not about profit.
Interestingly, with my brother, one very last week, 3 points. Madam, one. Yeah. Okay. Points gone. Next, Francis. Last one. Anything otherwise?
No, my last point is
okay. That's fine.
So my last point is
I'm going to unfortunately have to end the discussion. Thank you very much.
Very well done.
Thank you very much. I'm going to have to end this section. Okay, and right now, to make sure that we there's some cross-fertilization of ideas, education. So education. Thank you. So unfortunately, the timeline has been moved again, so we have less time to engage. And what I'm going to request is for the discussion leads. Hello. We still have additional discussions to do. Hello. All right, the education team. One house. Can I have one house? One house. One house. Okay, I'm going to hand over to the healthcare stream to give us an overview. And if you could go through the different questions and give the recommendations. And then after that, education team, education. Excuse me, sir. Thank you. And then after that, I'm going to hand over to the education team. And then after they've given their briefing, I'm going to take 2 or 3 questions from the opposing side to give to ask clarifying questions on issues that may have come up.
Okay, so thank you very much. Very interesting discussions. Probably the fastest panel that I've ever had to run. So this is what we got, and I'll describe them in 3 distinct buckets, all interrelated. First is that health needs to be positioned as part of the economic growth story, because if it's positioned that way, then you begin to appreciate the multi-sectorality of health. And when you begin to also ask for increased funding, when people are able to link and relate that to the economic growth story, then the conversation really changes. Closely related to that is that we know what has happened in countries that have achieved universal health coverage. For those countries, they have made a deliberate political commitment. In Ghana today, you cannot win an election if the populace does not know where you stand with the National Health Insurance Authority. Presidents have lost elections in Ghana because of that. So there must be a political commitment beyond the people in this room to say, this is the direction we want for health. And with that, economic growth political commitments means certain agreements around how much funding you want to give for health. Countries that have achieved universal health coverage have done so with public financing. I hear it all the time. Oh no, there's money in private sector, Aliko has money. Please, let's be clear and get out of this room with one fact. Government financing is what takes countries to universal health coverage. Finish. And closely related to that, and which is a peculiar problem in Nigeria, is that of federalism. Because when we talk public financing, do states and local governments actually contribute what they should be contributing in terms of public financing? Why is it important now? There was a law signed last year. Local governments now receive monies directly. So if you do not find a way for everybody to come to the drawing board to say, how do you contribute your funding? You will not get progress on public primary health care. I move to the second bucket because I assume now that we've been able to reach some consensus on public financing and the responsibilities of federal, state, local governments. Now, what do? We know that you cannot have all of the monies you need. And we have brilliant ideas from the group. Says, you know what? Based on what you have been able to get collectively amongst all tiers of government, you match that with the number of people who deserve help the most. These are the poor and vulnerable. Nigeria, you may not be aware in this room, has one of the most advanced national social registry. So all states in Nigeria today have what's called the state social registry, where the poor and vulnerable are pre-identified. Based on that, you can say, I want to guarantee this group of people a basic minimum package of health services. And by that, you'll know how much you're spending on health on this group of people per annum. I've paraphrased this particular bucket because once you do that, multiply 50 million people times maybe 30,000 naira. How much do you get? That's just paying for poor and vulnerable. You have created a market. And I go to the last bucket because now you've been able to pool monies for those who are unable to afford healthcare, and you have created a market. Because coming with that is that you are saying, I have guaranteed public financing, but I am able to buy from both public and private. That is the only way that the private sector will be able to set up hospitals in Gusau, in Kotagora, knowing that somebody is going to cover the cost of that healthcare. This is just a summary of one of the many things.
Thank you very much. Thank you for that quick wrap up. Hand over to the, yes.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. So education, very critical conversation. I'm sure you could hear us, rambling, but we've come to very interesting points. So, it takes a village to raise an intelligent child, and quality education isn't cheap, really. The crux of our conversation is how can we finance education so that it is accessible to the last mile, that is to the least in our communities and in our environments. So the first point that we had a conversation around was getting private sector investment or financing will involve what we call an education tax credit, whereby if each institution, and it's not just a credit, but a credit that builds or bridges the human capital gap. Now, we know that the present educational system isn't exactly preparing people for actually work relevance or work readiness. So how can corporate organizations like yourselves set up human capital development institutions that train these people and sort of polish their skills to enter into their segment, to work into their ecosystem or industry, and then get rebates for doing so? Or they partner with institutions who are already doing that training, building that pipeline, and get rebates for doing so. So instead of paying heavy taxes, you get rebates or you get holidays because you are investing in human capital. So that was one of the things we talked about. The next one is in educational bonds. So governments curating minimal risk educational bonds that people can invest in and just feel like, oh, yeah, I'm investing in someone's life to make it a lot easier, but I'm also, getting some returns in the long run or short run. So educational bonds was something that we talked about and articulated in our conversation. The third thing we talked about is private individuals who want to invest or who want to participate in funding people, but are scared because there's not transparency involved in the process. So if I fund somebody's school education, I really don't know what happens. I just know I just paid someone's school fees and I don't know where the child is. I don't know if they're continuing. I don't know anything about the child. So how can we bring in so in bringing that involvement of private individuals, right, we talked about 2 or 3 things. First is having an independent institution that can, people can take in that money and say, okay, these are the children, I know the children they are sponsoring for the period of time that they are investing in them, track their growth, track their commitment over the period of time. So that was 1. 2, have a digitized technology that can enable that transparency. So they know this is what I'm investing in, this is how it's going, this is where the child drops off, this is where the child is getting, this is where the child's career is looking, and sort of just brings more involvement in that space. And the last one we talked about is alumni funding. So for every school, every institution that has been established, we know that there's an alumni community. So getting involvement, they want to give back, but there's no how, like, would there be obstruction? So creating that system for alumni to also give back to their alma mater. Yes. So thank you. Those are the conversations I've had.
Thank you very much. Now we need to have 20 minutes of discussion to properly address these issues. Unfortunately, we've been told we don't have time and we have to wrap up. But what I want to make sure that I do is have at least one question go from one group to the other group to clarify. So not an education person commenting on education, but an education person commenting on healthcare and vice versa to get, and questions to clarify the points that they've raised. And then I have the discussion leads then answer or provide clarity. So just one on each side, because I think it's important. Now, I'll start with on the healthcare side. Is there anybody from the education side that has a clarifying question on one of the issues that was raised in the health discussion, which touched on it being a critical part of growth strategy, talked about the importance of prioritizing those in need? Is there a question from education to healthcare? I know you raised this is for healthcare. I just want to clarify. It's for, okay, all right, please.
I just wanted to ask whether the healthcare team, whether they are dealing with the same topic that we're dealing with, financing Nigerian human capital development, but taking it purely to, because you have raised an issue about public funding of healthcare. And that is a fantastic approach to it, that it must be a PPP, public, private partnership. That is the only thing. So my question is just, I don't want to find out, is it the same topic you're addressing?
Okay.
Yeah, yes. For the health sector, absolutely. That's what I want to ask. Whether is it the same question?
They're slightly different questions, but it's still about addressing the issues and getting financing to that sector.
Yeah, because you understand my question, because I'm trying to wrap my head whether.
Well, I guess what I'm hoping to pull out, by the way, is each discussion lead and group has raised issues and recommendations. And so I want questions that may challenge or clarify. Okay, so okay, please go ahead.
Okay, straight up. Did you look at the National Health Insurance Scheme, is it Act now? Did you review the work of Professor Yitayo Lambo? Did you deal with all of the issues, controversies around NHIS? Because the 30,000 you talked about as an insurance practitioner sounds to me like capitation. And you talked about 50 million persons. It's more than 50 million, but did you deal with the NHIS Act? The issues around there? If you dealt with that, we want to know.
So again, let me repeat this. For those who do not know, Nigeria's ranking on the Human Capital Index after the second round of league tables were released, we moved from 34 basic points to 36. What does that mean? It means that based on the health and education available to a child born today, by the time that child is 18 years old, that person will be 34% productive. It moved by 2, that person will be 36% productive. In Hong Kong, it is 88. In several other countries, they are between, in fact, Kenya is about 60. Please check it out. All right, so it looks at quality of education. Even if a child goes to school, what does a person learn? So for those who have made progress, what is it that they have done? If you do not spend public financing for health and education, you will continue to wallow in the low 30s, no matter how wealthy you are as a nation. So the point I make, so right now, we have outsourced education financing to private sector. So whether those people learn or not, it doesn't matter. Sir, you wanted to ask what was it? Where is Mr. Alimi? Wanted to know what was it that we were doing right 20, 30 years ago. It was because public financing was assured for the secondary school I went to and for the universities that we had at that time. So that the second point you mentioned, sir, about NHIA, and it doesn't matter. Now they are NHIA. So NHIA is a tool. It is not necessary, it is sufficient. So public financing is necessary but not sufficient. NHIA is what is sufficient. It is the instrument. By the way, for countries that have achieved universal health coverage, setting up an NHIA type of instrument does not necessarily guarantee you UHC. You can achieve UHC through even the traditional Ministry of Health route. But because, one second, sir, here, the Minister of Health cannot sack a doctor. It will take 1 year if the man doesn't show up for work. So it means that there are some fundamental challenges with our Ministry of Health type of arrangement. All right. So, but to address those kind of accountability and governance problems, that's why we then make the policy decision that we will use the NHIA route. But even after setting it up, only 5% of the public financing we're talking about is routed through that instrument. So in short, you have bought a Rolls Royce, but it's parked in your garage and you are not using it. Because despite setting it up, all of the public financing at the national and state levels is still routed through those ministries of health. To end and to address the point you said, so NHIA, monies they receive must be tied to people's head. So you register 50 million, 10 million, 30 million, and you must buy through public or private. That is what you get from using that route. And that is exactly what we are not doing.
Thank you very much. Thank you. So now I'd like to hand over to the education stream. And if there are people that were in the healthcare discussion that have clarifying questions for the education stream. And they talked about in the range of different options to finance the education system, tax credit, alumni, individual funding. So are there questions? One, maximum two from healthcare, madam?
Okay, so this question is because nobody raised up their hand. Okay, my question is around, okay, let me stand up. I'm a bit curious. Why aren't all of these players that are involved, especially the private sector amongst you, involved in the education system of the country? Why aren't you also involved in health?
That's an interesting question.
Okay, thank you very much. Yes, my name is Dr. Francis Okuija. I work for the World Health Organization. I am thinking that the health education sector in Nigeria has access to more resources than the health sector in Nigeria. This is a debate that can take like 2 months, right? Because the health sector educational sector has access to a number of taxes. So if I own a health facility in Nigeria, that is, if I own a hospital, at the end of each accounting year, I pay education tax because it's an establishment, even though it is not within the educational landscape. But there isn't such that is in the other section. So if I hear you discuss more money for education, I would rather want to hear how the resources that are already directed to education are utilized, because that is what didn't come out from your conversation. How do we handle that?
So one more question.
Okay.
No comments, just questions, please.
No, mine is both a question and an observation.
No observations, please. Just a question.
Okay. How do you deal with out of school street children? I didn't hear that mentioned, because that's again a pool of people that needed to be educated.
Okay, thank you very much. 3 very important questions. So a malnourished and unhealthy child is not going to be productive in school. So how is that addressed? All of us that own companies pay education tax. What happens to that money? And the people that have the greatest need at the bottom of the pyramid, how is that handled?
Thank you so much for all of those questions. Very, very interesting questions. You guys put me in a spot, but yeah, let's find it. Let's find a way out. So first things first, to really establish the questions that we were asked to deliberate on were quite different from those that were asked in health. I just wanted to quickly establish that. So different contexts prevailed. Why are we talking about private investment in education? Is because even though there's been a critical mass of resources and funding that has been gathered for the education sector, it is not getting to the last mile. Who still experiences the hurt and all of that? Still the private sector still experiences the brunt of that. We know that when it comes to public funding, we established as a group that it's important to start to think about things within our control. What can we control? Our circle of control. We know that leadership plays a role when it comes to accessing those funds. And do we have control over leadership strongly? All of those things are building up. We don't have the full answers to that. So what can we do? Are we going to wait for another 10 years, another 5 years, or another 4 years for things to change? We also established that it will take a village to change and turn around things in education. So what can the village do? And so these were the basis on which we founded some of the conversations that were brought out from it. The bonds, the tax credits, speaking to the fact that, hey, if we're paying education fund and we're not getting money, then there has to be lobbying and conversations around. I know that the whole thing that goes around tax is not an independent or individual push. There's a lot of policy and negotiation that goes into that for that to happen. So these are some of the things that we hope to recommend to come out from conversations like here that we're having at NESG. Why is education and health put apart? And why is there no inclusion? I think someone wants to.
Well, what I was going to say just is that because, sorry, okay.
Okay.
And just as a context, there are many issues, and we've not had enough time to properly go into discussion on all those issues. So if you didn't discuss some of the issues, we can then.
Yeah. Okay. So why is education and health set apart, and why is it not inclusive enough? I think mindset plays a role. People just say, go to school. When you learn, you will make it one day. And so that mindset prevails, forgetting that a hungry child is going to need food to even get anything done in the first place. And the government has tried to feed a child in school funding, but there's a lot of politics that has gone into that has eroded. So the key thing that we discuss in our group is how do we get these things to the last mile? So if I was funding 2 children in school and I know that I make provision for their resources and I'm seeing how there's an independent institution channeling and ensuring that that money, that resource gets to that child at the last mile, then we begin to take ownership of the education away from the government. Slowly, not eradicating them or not saying, government, you have no role to play. You people get out. No, that's not what we're doing. But we know that private sector will change the government's behavior towards that. See, I work in tech, right? And we can see how fintech has changed and made the government to sit up in a space that was full of chaos. And we know that education sector is chaotic. But can private sector drive change and change behavior? And that's what we're trying to push for, that when the individual starts to change behavior, the government will see that there's a critical mass and they will have to change and adopt, because we cannot, as much as we can try, there's very little we can do with influencing leadership over a period of time. We're all Nigerians, we've seen it over and over again. So
thank you.
Thank you,
everyone. Now, for those that want to continue this very important discussion, the NESG has commissions on both health and education, and would definitely love your contributions. So if you can please either speak to Ibrahim here, and is Martins here as well? Yes. And please speak to them about joining the commission so you can then add inputs to the ongoing conversations. Thank you everyone for your time. We really appreciate it. The plenary session has started. Thank you.
Let's